Imagine walking into a fishmonger in Catropolis and discovering that the same fish you bought last year is now smaller, with less meat, but costing exactly the same coins. The label hasn't changed, the vendor hasn't changed, the dish on the menu hasn't changed. But suddenly, what you take home is simply less. Sounds like magic? No, it has a name: inflation. And the strangest thing is that most cats don't even notice at first. They think it's bad luck. The fisherman got lazy or the menu shrank due to carelessness. But in reality, it's their own pockets being emptied without warning. Every fish coin you save is worth less than it was yesterday. It's as if someone were stealing bones from your plate every day without ever touching it. Now think about scale. It's not just your dinner that shrinks. It's the meal of the entire Catropolis. Cats buying sardines, tuna, salmon, everyone getting less fish for the same price. It's the invisible tax that no one voted for, but everyone pays. And here's the real shocker. If inflation is this tax in disguise, who's collecting it? Who's behind this trick that turns big fish into increasingly small fish, thin? In Catropolis, the cats live believing that the fish that circulate through the market are the fruit of their labor. Fishermen who leave early, boats that brave the waves, vendors who negotiate along the harbor. But there's a hidden detail in the machinery. Not all the fish that appears in the market comes from the sea. A considerable, portion is born in machines, printers at City Hall, and the Central Bank of Catropolis. It's as if there were a secret faucet that can pour digital fish into the economy whenever the rulers decide. The justification is always the same. We need to keep the city running. When fish tax revenue isn't enough to pay for cat schools, food hospitals, and the Cat Guard Patrol, City Hall turns to the central bank for help. And the central bank, instead of fishing, simply creates more fish with a click of a button. In the short term, it seems like a miracle. Suddenly, there are enough fish to cover all expenses. Salaries are paid, the ports stay busy, and no one goes without dinner. But here's the point. Few realize, every new fish created outside the sea weakens the value of the fish already in the pockets of the cats. If 10 fish coins bought a nice tuna yesterday, tomorrow it will take 12 to bring the same tuna home. It's like diluting soup. The more water you add to the pot, the less flavor remains per spoonful. Government officials explain that this process stimulates the economy, gives breathing space to business, and ensures stability in times of crisis. But while they print fish to keep the city afloat, the ones who feel the real burden are the common people. The fishermen who receive payment for their catch, the merchants who save fish coins to invest, even you who just want to buy a plate of sardines at the end of the day, all discover that the central bank's paper fish have a perverse effect. They make their work less productive and their savings weaken. And if with each click that generates new fish, the average citizen's plate shrinks, the inevitable question is, how long can this tap stay open without turning the entire Catropolis into a sea of pimples? So, when the cat realizes that the fish he saved so diligently no longer buys the same meal, the anger wells up inside. That's when the penny drops. It's not bad luck. It's not the fisherman's laziness. It's the system itself draining money from every citizen's pocket. This is where I need to ask you something. If this kind of explanation makes sense to you and should reach more cats in Catropolis and beyond, subscribe to the channel now, because only then can we bring this kind of conversation, without filters, without fuss, to many more people who also deserve to understand how their plate is shrinking day by day. And back to the point, every time the fish printer is turned on at City Hall, it seems like the problem has been solved. But in practice, what they're doing is stealing tiny invisible bites from every sardine, every tuna, every bone already floating around in the city. And the cruelest detail is that these new fish don't appear on the market with a label saying printed at the Central Bank of Catropolis. They blend in with the real fish, the ones captured with nets, sweat, and hours at sea. To the average cat, everything looks the same. A fish coin is still a fish coin. But deep down, the number of fish in circulation has been artificially increased, and this completely changes the game. City Hall defends this practice by saying it's necessary to keep the city running. Whenever the budget doesn't add up, whether it's paying for roads, paying the feline guard, or financing infrastructure projects at the port, they turn to the central bank. And the central bank, instead of fishing, creates digital fish, adding more units to the economy with a click. It's as if Catropolis had discovered a way to create infinite fish, but without considering the cost to those who already had theirs in their pockets. In the short term, it works. Cats receive salaries, services remain active, and markets remain supplied. But gradually, the invisible effect appears. Each fish purchased requires more coins. The sardine that used to cost her $5 now costs her $7. The tuna that used to cost her $12 becomes her $15. The dish at the restaurant looks the same, but it weighs more, heavily on the wallet. And by the time everyone realizes it, it's too late. What was sold as stability was nothing more than an invisible tax called inflation. And what's most intriguing is how this practice shapes trust in Catropolis. Because if rulers can create fish out of thin air whenever they need it, what's the real value of the fish coins you hold? How much can you believe that a fisherman's labor, a merchant's investment, or a citizen's savings will withstand the flood of paper fish? The central bank unleashes on the market whenever it tightens its grip. I look for? When Catropolis is flooded with new fish created by the central bank, something strange happens. Suddenly, everyone seems richer. The market is full, the tables are full, and the feeling is one of abundance. But this abundance is illusory, because if everyone has too many fish, each individual fish becomes worth less. It's as if the city has discovered the magical source of infinite schools, but instead of improving everyone's lives, this tide ends up drowning the value of what already existed. Think of it this way. Before, one fish was enough to pay for an entire dinner plate. Now, with the market overflowing with fish farmed from scratch, that same fish barely buys a bone at the bottom of the plate. Fish is still fish, but it's lost its purchasing power. And the worst part is, this doesn't happen suddenly. It happens slowly, like water seeping in without you noticing. Government officials call this the natural adjustment of the economy. But for the average citizen, it means working more, fishing longer hours, and at the end of the day, taking home less food. It's the invisible tax of inflation, which doesn't show up on your bill, but hides in the amount of fish you can fit in your pocket. Dish. This is inflation's most perverse trick. It functions as an invisible tax that no one voted for, but everyone pays. Unlike official taxes, which arrive with a city hall stamp and due date, this charge infiltrates daily life without warning. The fisherman's salary seems the same, but he no longer buys the same quantity of fish at the market. The merchant continues to receive coins, but he has to spend more of them to replenish his stock. And the average citizen, who just wanted to guarantee a decent dinner, discovers that the same sardine from yesterday now costs 2 coins more. That's why we call inflation a silent thief. It doesn't show up on your statement, it doesn't knock on your door, but it eats away at your purchasing power bit by bit. And in the end, the cat that thought it was safe ends up eating less fish without ever having been consulted. Ultimately, inflation isn't just about numbers on a chart or complicated graphs from the central bank of Catropolis. It's the invisible current that runs through the entire pond. When confidence wanes, the fish lose value, and everyone ends up paying the price. The fisherman who got up early at the port, the merchant who disciplinedly hoarded fish coins, the citizen who just wanted a decent meal, all see their efforts yield less. That's why inflation can be called the invisible tariff. It doesn't appear in an official decree, it's not announced in public, but it drains every plate of fish in the city. And while government officials sell the idea that it's just a technical detail, the reality is that the entire fishery suffers. This is the moral Catropolis never likes to hear. When you farm too many fish, in the and everyone ends up with less on their plate.